2025 has already been a wild ride for new indie games. Developers once again have pushed the boundaries, taken risks, and given us all experiences reminding us why we all fell in love with indie games in the first place. Here are my top 10 indie games of 2025 so far I've most enjoyed playing. At number 10, Lonely Mountains Snow Riders carved its lovely path onto our screens in January, and from a quick look, you'd be forgiven thinking this is perhaps a gentle and peaceful little romp in the snowy backcountry. That, however, couldn't be further than the truth. This downhill racing game is exceptionally difficult. My initial reaction with this was mixed from marvelling at the beautiful voxel art and sublime colour palette, to spikes of peak, almost rage-quitting anger. I can still recall months later, my teenage son coming to see if I was all right, after perhaps one too many crosswords at the TV after yet another half dozen or so faceplants into the rocks and trees that line the piste. However, with time and patience came a sort of mastery. I'd get to know the courses, where to push, where to hold back, and in so doing, after a few weeks' practice, could fly down the mountains in a flow state, barely even comprehending my input to the controls. The online multiplayer is another gem of something to get stuck into as you race down the mountains against up to 7 others. These races are fairly frantic affairs, with always being 1 or 2 people playing to put your skills to shame. There are also those who, well, just aren't that great with you able to watch their exploits once you've finished. At times this can be heart-wrenching whilst giving laugh-out-loud moments in equal measure. Lonely Mountain Snow Riders is a triumph and is currently available on Steam and Xbox. At number 9, Riff came out in early May on PC, with it being a tower defense game that sets itself apart from others in the genre in the way in which it allows players a fairly free rein in how they play it, while also requiring a greater degree of strategic thinking than might be expected. You take charge of a character who can build towers, which you're able to customize in a number of ways, depending on how you want to play the game. I really enjoyed the idea here where you're able to plan your towers ahead, and start building them before you have the necessary currency. If you think you've picked the wrong type of tower, don't worry, you can get a full refund, and if your tower is lost during a wave, it can be rebuilt before the next one starts. It all offers quite a playful version of what you might expect from this type of game, with it lasting somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 hours of playtime. I found the difficulty did ramp up quickly a few hours in, although that wasn't enough for me to find anything overly at fault with this really rather versatile overall experience. At number 8 from late May, Kabuto Park is a supremely delightful animal collection game where you play as a girl obsessed with catching little bugs and other associated critters. Once you've collected your bugs, you can use a candy system to level them up and then face off against other bugs in a simple but enjoyable battle system. All of this is super cute, and I spent most of my time with this with my youngest daughter, who simply adored it. It can get a little repetitive, and yet the joy here for me was playing this reflected very much in that of my playing partner. And as we get deeper into the summer, I suspect we might be looking to replicate the bug hunting we see here outside in real life. From one festival of bugs to another, although FlyKnight comes from a very different side of the spectrum to the previous Kabuto Park. Now please hear me out on this. While it might in places look, well, a little bit odd, FlyKnight offers a beautifully difficult hack and slasher that's up there in how it made me feel playing it with the likes of the Souls games and even Elden Ring. The battles feel really well designed, and I had to study the enemy's movements and attack signalling way more than I suspected before getting going on this one. I typically opted for a strike and dash approach to get in close, slash away at a limb or something else, and then retreat to a safe distance. I underused the spell systems and ranged weapons, as these options don't typically fit my type of playstyle, although if that's for you, then there seems plenty of options to keep you mages and archers happy. There's much to enjoy here, and also a co-op mode which I didn't get too much of a chance to play. I'm thinking this might become a little cult classic over the forthcoming years. FlyKnight popped out in PC on the last day of January. At number 6, Blade Chimera is a hugely enjoyable and visually stunning Metroidvania that leans heavily on the fundamentals of the genre and delivers something that for me is the pinnacle of what's on offer in the genre for the first half of the year. Set within a post-End of Days Osaka, you play as a demon hunter, where the combat feels snappy, perfectly weighted, and supremely satisfying, especially when using your blade's recoil option to have it fly back at you while acting as a deadly boomerang. It's also incredibly stylish. I adore the pixel art and how everything is blended with the neon-tinged cyberpunk stylings. All of this is accompanied by a pulsating soundtrack that helps elevate the action even more. Its weakness? Well, the story tries perhaps a little bit too hard here and there are, perhaps, a few predictable lines and plot twists that you can see coming from a mile away. However, the combat and the thrill I took away from simply getting out there and having a good old scrap kept me playing this until the end. This is a must-play for Metroidvania lovers, with it out on PC and the Nintendo Switch. At number 5, Miro perhaps naturally puts me in mind of a lo-fi pixelated version of No Man's Sky, with you exploring procedurally generated planets containing all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures and the ruins of long-lost civilizations. It honestly does remind me, though, of the first or so years of No Man's Sky. It's all about resource collection and management, although it's also a fairly relaxing experience. I often found myself wombling around a planet or two, just pootling along from point A to point B. While this is an open world, there is also a guiding story to follow which unfolds the deeper you get into the game. No spoilers, it all feels genuinely well told, and I'm honestly surprised this hasn't seen more traction, with it currently having only 11 reviews over on its Steam homepage. This really is an indie hidden gem from the first half of 2025, and I loved it. At number 4, Despelote is set in Ecuador during the country's World Cup qualifying campaign back in 2001, with it in part being a semi-autobiography of one of the game's lead designers. Yes, there's a story here of the plucky underdog, and yet what I really took away from Despelote was how the team behind it have written a story on what it's like to capture and relive the feeling of being a child at this precise snapshot in history. You attend school, go out and about with your parents, and listen to conversations of adults as they go about their daily tasks and rituals. While the focus is on football, you'll also learn about the context of which all of this happened. Ecuador was in a state of financial crisis with hyperinflation. People were losing everything, and yet their nation's football side offered a glimpse of hope to all those watching. It's short, it can be played in a long evening, and it's strikingly compelling exploration of why, for so many, football and national identity are deeply intertwined social narratives.
To the architect, an empty blueprint represents a world of possibilities.
At number 3, Blueprints came out in mid-April, and in terms of indie games exposure, it seemed to be everywhere. All over socials, even reviews in the UK national print newspapers, and plenty of people online telling me it should be considered a Game of the Year contender. I didn't pick this up at launch, and when I did, at first, it didn't really click. I found the player movements a little slow, and to be honest, I felt that way about much of the game. It is slow, it's steady, it demands your attention in ways many games simply do not. The inability to save a play session between days in the game was also a point of annoyance. And then things did click, as I got into the headspace with which to play this game, perhaps as the developers had intended. Once I'd begun to leverage the need to treat this with the time and care I think it really needs, the puzzles became fun. The hints at things still yet to find, such as a set of car keys, gave little hooks to keep me coming back, and back to find its secrets and puzzles. And come the end, it had become that good-natured kind of itch I just couldn't quite scratch.
Out here, things move a little slower.
In the runners-up slot, and only out a few days before I compiled this rundown, Cast and Chill will probably be my biggest surprise of all 2025. I've never really enjoyed fishing. I used to live near the sea, and as a child and teenager, I'd cast a hook with some bait or perhaps a lure into the water from time to time, and not very often I'd catch a pollock or maybe a garfish, but nothing really of value, and I moved on to other leisure pursuits. Cast and chill is everything my late 40s self would want from a spot of fishing. Everything feels so relaxed and calming. Playing this on my big screen while getting nice and comfy on the sofa just made me feel so damn cozy. I'm in awe of the pixel artwork that's going on here. The work on the water and the sky particularly is phenomenal. I can sit back and stare into those skies in a way I can similarly do back home on the beach looking at the sunset. Likewise for the work on the audio, the sound here is almost perfection, with the ripple of the waves against the boat, and if you close your eyes you can almost be there out on the water. As for the gameplay, I tended to play between the active and passive modes, with the former requiring you to do a little bit of work to get the fish on the hook, whereas the latter is a little bit more passive. I'm in awe of what Cast and Chill delivers, with so far this year there only being one game, if forced, I'd play instead of it. At number 1 of the best indie games so far in 2025, Expelled came out in March on the PC, iOS and the Nintendo Switch. Set in 1922 amongst the backdrop of the British Empire and the First World War and the UK social class system, Expelled sees you playing as Verity Amersham, a scholarship student at a private school for girls where, sadly for many of the students and teachers, she's not made of the right kind of stuff. Verity is accused of pushing the school's hockey captain out of a window, and it's up to you to try and work out how to prevent her expulsion. I adore this. The constant feeling of class-based oppression and your fight against it is so well delivered. The game rewards multiple playthroughs as your choices each time open up new dialogue and story branches, and while I started playing this as someone who plays by the rules, I found out success, by some measure, really comes in playing back against the system. I'd lie, manipulate, blackmail, all of the things good folk shouldn't do, and yet here in the Expelled world, it's these type of actions that can get you to the head of the class. The real, if I can call it that, ending is a whiz-banger of one, and not anything I'll spoil here. Expelled is quite simply, in a word or two, utterly excellent, and right now, it's the indie game out so far in 2025 I've most enjoyed playing. So then tell me, which indie game of 2025 have you enjoyed the most? Do let me know down in the comments. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you all here soon for another indie game video.